The British parliamentary party system was rocked earlier this week when 7 Labourite members of the British House of Commons, which is the British National Parliament's low and directly and much more powerful house, announced that they would leave the party, citing see. Let's see. Citing racism and the Brexit, ongoing Brexit election. Tom Watson commented that Labour must change to avoid more resignations. The Labour Party's deputy leader, Tom Watson, issued a statement on Facebook, apparently on February the 18th, 2019, saying that the party must change if it wants to avoid more resignations, and this is from the Guardian newspaper's website. He said that there was no time to waste if Labour wanted to stop more people from leaving and that the party needed to be kinder and gentler. I love this party, but sometimes I no longer recognize it, he said. In his opinion, the 7 members of parliament who resigned are not traitors, but he thought they had drawn the wrong conclusion to a serious question. This is a moment for regret and reflection, not for a mood of anger or tone of triumph, he said. There are those who are already celebrating the departure of colleagues with whom they disagree. The tragedy of the hard left is they can be too easily tempted into the language of heresy and treachery. Betrayal narratives and shouting insults at the departed might make some feel better briefly, but it does nothing to address the reasons why good colleagues might want to leave. And I would say here that this would be a good piece of advice for guess who? The current US President, Donald Trump, who has engaged in such nasty rhetoric. And I'm quite sure that if any of his trusted advisors, such as the White House press secretary Sarah Sanders, or his advisor or counselor, I don't know what her official title is, Kellyanne Conway, suddenly resigned and offered no clear explanation for that, or then said that they no longer could, in good conscience, support him, I'm quite sure that he would at least privately denounce them as traitors or as people who were not strong enough or something like that, rather than allow for the possibility that his bad behavior actually had led them to do so. Speaking about Luciana Berger's decision to quit the party, citing the leadership's failure to do enough to tackle anti-Semitism, he said, I'd like to place on record my complete respect for Luciana and my understanding of the decision to which she had been driven. They say anti-Semitism is a light sleeper, and this is certainly a wake-up call for the Labour Party. Even a single incident of anti-Semitism in the Labour Party shames us and shames us all. Now we've lost Luciana, one of our most dedicated and courageous MPs. If someone like her no longer believes there's a role for her in the Labour Party, then many other colleagues will be asking themselves how they can stay. And then let's go to the Independent newspaper's website. It is another major British daily newspaper, Vince Cable's column. Cynics may decry the Independent group, but here's why party slips are a blessing for British politics. And he argues there's a need for collaborative work in Parliament on the ground in the face of Brexit and populism. Only a genuinely new and powerful centrist group could achieve that. The decision of 7 MPs to leave Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party is no surprise, but that makes it no less significant. Indeed, it may be the first wave of several with similar splits on the Conservative side also likely. As someone who was a foot soldier in the last Labour civil war, leading to the formation of the SDP or Social Democratic Party, that was back in 1981, so in the middle of the late British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher's rather rocky first term as the British Prime Minister, and then which led to the alliance of the Social Democrats and Liberals. And although that party took for a third party a surprisingly large share of the popular vote in the British 1983 general or parliamentary elections, over 25%, it only was able to elect 23 candidates out of 650. Why? Well, because of the British electoral system, first past the post, meaning that in order to win an electoral district, all you need to win is the largest number of votes. No qualified plurality is required, such as 30, 35, 40, or 45%, let alone a majority. And there's no second round of voting. So whoever wins the largest number of votes will win outright. Then secondly, the critical split of the center-left vote between the Social Democratic and Liberal Alliance on the one hand and the British Labour Party on the other hand, the Labour Party getting over 27% of the vote. And then the Conservative Party's continued popularity, while the party lost some 1.5% of its share of the vote and was down to, I think, 42.4%, it was still almost 15% ahead of the Labourites, meaning the mainstream Labourites, not the breakaway Labourites of the SDP Liberal Alliance. And thus it was even able to increase its majority in the British House of Commons, rising to 397 seats out of 650, compared to the Labour Party's 209 seats and the Social Democratic Liberal Alliance's 23 seats. So I just wonder what will happen to this independent group. Will it be another rather short-lived party, although the Social Democratic Liberal Alliance did stay intact through the 1987 British general election, but receiving, I think, 22 seats. Its share of the vote was down to about 23% or so. And eventually, the two parties merged into the Liberal Democrats, which were able to get their highest number of seats in the 2005 British general elections, 62 or 63%, 62 or 63 seats, as I recall. And this despite the fact that they actually received a respectable 23% or so of the vote, 22, 23%. In other words, they were only able to get under half of the share of the seats that they would otherwise have received. No wonder the Liberal Democrats have been among the chief advocates for the adoption of some electoral reform, either in the form of the alternative vote, AV, or some form of proportional representation, because that would automatically then increase, especially the adoption of even a limited form of proportional representation, such as electing 25 or 33% of the House of Commons members through the proportional representation with, say, a 5% national vote threshold, which the Liberal Democrats, even in their weakened state, would be able to clear. So I just wonder what will be the future of that. And then we have the United Kingdom Independence Party, which was popular, I think, in the 2015 British general elections in terms of the popular vote, but only was able to get, if I remember correctly, one seat. Once again, because of the electoral system, once again, because of vote splitting and so forth. So Mr. Cable is able to see both the compulsions behind the split and the dangers it presents. There are several factors behind the Labour split. Brexit looms large. According to the official schedule, Britain should exit the European Union on March the 29th, 2019, with or without a deal, with the Labour leadership's support and their obstruction of attempts to get the party behind a people's vote referendum. Anti-Semitism is another, and this, of course, is interesting given the fact that normally the center-left and left-wing parties have been seen as ethnically clearly more tolerant than the center-right and especially the solidly conservative right-wing, let alone the so-called national conservative or far-right populist parties. But anti-Semitism, of course, crosses, for example, religious, cultural, ethnic, racial, and even ideological and political and educational lines. And not to be forgotten, the unwillingness of Corbyn to condemn Russian involvement in the Skripal poisoning and his long antipathy to Western collective defense. And then there has, of course, been a huge antipathy for the Labour leader and his entourage, as the vast bulk of the Parliamentary Labour Party disagree with them. The division was eased as a result of Corbyn's good showing at the last general election in 2017, but Brexit has reopened it. The remaining Labour MPs who share the rebels' agenda but have decided to stay put will argue that a Labour split can only help the Conservatives at a time when the Conservatives themselves are internally divided over Brexit. Both historical precedent and the brutal mechanisms of first-past-the-post electoral system do not offer real encouragement to breakaway groups which are broadly based politically and have strong constituency roots. However, I believe that the Conservatives cannot be far behind. We know that Brexit has opened up bitter divisions between the ERG/UKIP wing of the Conservative Party and what is left of the One Nation modernizing Cameron tradition. The fact that the Tory party now has its own militant tendency seeking to undermine and unseat those who lack sufficient Brexit zeal may make their divisions more transparent. If there is a Conservative breakaway, then we will be talking about a genuinely new and potentially powerful centrist grouping involving my own party. But if this is merely a Labour breakaway and small, the prospect is less rosy. My party has and will continue to play an important role and should not be discounted by those who simply want something new, in quotation marks. We have a substantial infrastructure of 100,000 members and around 2,000 councillors with a concentration of strong support in some areas. There is a revival of the party taking place at local government level, in other words, in the cities and rural towns, as it did during the big upsurge of support in the 1990s and 2000s. Of course, that was the time when Tony Blair led the Labour Party and was able to lead it to 3 consecutive majorities in the British general elections of 1997, 2001, and 2005. However, in the 2010 British general election, Blair's successor, Gordon Brown, was only able to achieve, I think, 29% of the popular vote for the Labour Party, and the Conservatives, with 36% of the vote, won a plurality and then decided to form a coalition government with the Liberal Democrats, who won, I think, 23%. And since then, the Labour Party has been in the opposition. I expect more evidence of this resurgence this May 2019, just as we saw last year. Meantime, I have offered a hand of friendship to the new independent group and would welcome others, Labour and Conservatives, who also share our values. There is no question of a new centrist party or of the rebels being swallowed up by a collaborative arrangement, a confederation of groups who have a lot in common but wish to maintain their identity. The immediate priority is to collaborate on Brexit where there is a disastrous no deal to be seen off and the counting hope of a people's vote as the best way to end the current uncertainty. And beyond that is the need to develop a clear prospectus, ideas which those from liberal or social democratic traditions can promote together to fight the dangerous populism of the left and right. Sir Vince Cable is leader of the Liberal Democrats. This was a surprise to me. I thought that he was a Labourite, and backs a people's vote, meaning a referendum on the Brexit deal.